I know, I'm making dessert. Vanilla wafer crust, pine nuts, it's kind of like a key lime pie with a twist. And the kicker here is the tequila. Now we're gonna work on this crust. Some vanilla wafers and some pine nuts. Nice nutty flavor coming out of this. Butter's melted down. I'm gonna take it off of the heat because it'll be ready to add into these vanilla wafers here in a second. About 10 ounces should work fine into a food processor. And I don't use a food processor a lot, but I found that I couldn't cut these with a knife to make them small enough. I had big chunks. Okay, so those go down. About a third of a cup of the pine nuts. This is gonna give a nice nutty flavor. Ties in with it. And you know, I like these vanilla wafers. They kind of got like a little bit of a saltiness to them. Pop that on the top. Not super, super fine. I'm gonna take a little bit out just to use as a little sprinkle on top of this. Okay. Pop this back on, give it a little bit more. Excellent. Now the butter goes in. Now what's the butter gonna do? It's gonna work as a little bit of a binder. It also helps that when you put it in this tart shell, when you wanna take it out, having a little bit of the butter fat kind of helps it come out a little bit easier. So I think it's poured in there. Pop this back on. Excellent. Now bring this up. Now I've got an oven that's preheated at 350 degrees. So what I'll do is get this formed into here. There we go. And what I'm gonna do is push it around to the sides, okay, kind of evenly, and then come in with this and work the edges. Look at that, not bad. Measuring cup to kind of tamp it down a little bit. Doesn't have to be a cup like that, a glass would work or anything, but look at that, nice edge. Okay, 350 degrees in the oven, anywhere from 4 to 8 minutes. Want to put a nice little crust on it. Oh, look at that bad boy. Nice and toasted. I'm gonna let it sit here and chill out for a bit because we don't want to put that cold mixture in on that warm shell, but looks dynamite. All right, little toss here. That's looking good. All right, now let's make the filling that's gonna go inside. Mixing bowl, now this whole baking thing, a lot of measuring, so about a third of a cup of tequila. There we go. And half cup of lime juice. There we go. That goes in the pool. Nice tartness there. The tequila has its own distinct flavor. And then this is the thing that's gonna kind of tie it all together and make a dessert. And this is this sweetened condensed milk. So what happens is some sugar is added, the milk's heated up and reduced down by about 50 or 60%. Wow, it's sticky and gooey. And you know me and sticky things. Syrup drives me crazy. All right, get this in. Look at that. Now this is all for the filling, and later we're gonna take some egg whites and whip them and mix this in and fold it in and make it nice and light and fluffy. But so we've got sweet, we've got creamy, we've got the tartness of the lime juice, and then a little of that unique flavor of the tequila. Okay. All right, so I'm done with this guy. Now comes the magical time of me and eggs. With the whites in here, come on. There we go, and one yolk there. Okay, before I forget, let me go ahead and get some of my sugar in here, about a tablespoon. There we go. Do this again, where we go with the white in, come on, there we go, and the yolk in here. Now, these whites are gonna get mixed in here with a whisk in just a second, and that's gonna kind of make this nice voluminous group that's gonna get mixed into the creaminess. Now I'm just looking for some more yolks, and I have not busted the yolk yet, so there we go. And down, and one more. Now, while all of this is going on, we've got a beautiful piece of skirt steak doing time in the fridge in a real nice marinade of a little bit of tequila. No, it's not gonna work. Let me try that one more time. I was bragging about my ability to separate the egg. There we go. Okay, so that takes care of that. Let me get a whisk. I have just whisked more than I've ever whisked in my life. I've got my nice soft peaks here with my egg whites and sugar, and what I just have in here is condensed milk, tequila, and a little bit of lime juice. Now what's gonna happen is I'm gonna fold this in here, fold this mixture in. Now when I say fold it in, it's real nice and light and soft, okay? What happens is we don't wanna take out all of this aeration that we put into the egg whites. There we go. And this is gonna be making this tequila lime tart. There we go. So lightly fold it over. You can tell that I've done this a million times, can't you? Okay. Now we're gonna take this, bring over the sheet tray. This is the vanilla wafer that we've got in here with the pine nuts. Pour it right in on top. Look at that creamy goodness. The key is not leave too much in the bowl, but not overflow. And see, by not mixing it too much, it stays nice and light and fluffy. Otherwise, you know, with the condensed milk and the egg yolks, this can get a little bit heavy. There we go. Now to the oven, 350 degrees, 20 minutes. Keep an eye on it. There we go. I can feel it already. And then I made a little bit of whipped cream here with some heavy cream and a little bit of confectioner's sugar and a little bit of the crust that I saved and sprinkle that on top. Since we don't see it every day on Big Bite, I gotta take a big bite of dessert first. Put away your passports, because this south of the border trip is over. Take it easy, Big Bite style.
I'm making a chocolate-covered strawberry tart with a surprise in the center.
Ooh, fancy.
This is
a tart.
super yummy. Jeff, I'm gonna have you help me.
Okay.
So if you can just take the stem off those strawberries and then slice them in half lengthwise, that'd be
Beautiful,
great.
you got
That's
it.
gonna be for our garnish.
I don't wanna.
So I'm making the filling right now. I've got a few cups of cream and a little bit of milk in here that I'm just heating up. And then to make this strawberry, I'm gonna add to it, you know those freeze-dried strawberries that are so popular now, freeze-dried fruit? So this is a great way to infuse flavor. So they're just freeze-dried, you put them right in there and just kind of let them steep. It takes about 5 minutes.
I never seem to find the freeze-dried
They're in
fruits.
the snack aisle, like where all the trail mix and everything is, they're
I
around
stay
there.
away from the snack aisle.
Take it off the heat because these burn so quickly. It's little white chocolate chips. So I actually use the mini chips because these melt so much faster, so it takes less time and you have less risk of burning them then. So I just put in a whole bag and I put in some vanilla extract for a little extra flavor. And then just stir this up, let it start to melt. That milk's hot enough that it's gonna melt it. So we've got cream, milk, freeze-dried strawberries, white chocolate chips, and vanilla. Okay, so now it goes into the blender. So it's gonna have all that good strawberry flavor in there. And then just turn it up. All right, so the filling's gonna go into the tart shell. I just made this out of chocolate wafers, sugar, and butter. Ground it up, put it into a tart pan, and baked it for about 10 minutes. So now you just pour this filling in.
How easy is this?
So easy, and since there aren't any eggs in this custard filling, you don't need to bake it. So this just goes into the fridge, because I like to let it completely cool. Jeff, will you open the fridge for me?
Yes, I will.
Did you know that strawberries are the only fruit with their seeds on the outside?
I never realized
I need
it.
both
Sorry.
sides.
I was totally distracted by Sonny's tidbit there. I was amazed. Because I heard Sonny, then I looked at the strawberries, and
I'll bring the tidbits.
my world came crashing.
I didn't know. What about
All
blackberries?
right, so after it goes into the fridge and cools completely, you put it into the freezer for just 30 minutes. So, and I'll tell you why. It's because of the sauce we're gonna put on top. So you want it to get like extra cold. So it needs that little extra 30 minutes in there. It's because I'm using this chocolate sauce that's the shell that hardens up.
The magic chocolate.
Needs that. You're gonna use pretty much a whole bottle. on
There's
this.
nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it at all.
All right, so you just wanna let that set up. It's
really
and start
pretty.
to harden.
So beautiful.
So you just let this harden up, and while it hardens, because it just takes a minute or two, we're gonna do the finishing touch of our garnish. So I made some chocolate-covered strawberries here. You can do the chocolate covering on the strawberries with either those little chocolate melts, or you can use just regular chocolate chips. And let them harden completely, and then I melted some white chocolate, and I'm gonna use this as a garnish.
They actually sell the chocolate in a little tub you can microwave to dip your strawberries into.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I'm not in the
cute.
snack aisle, but I'm in that chocolate aisle.
Okay, so you just pipe this on. All right, so let's decorate now.
Let's do it.
Jeff, you're gonna help me with this.
Yes, I will.
Oh, that'd
So
be
we're gonna take
fantastic.
those
Oh, yeah, look at-
strawberries that you so beautifully cut, and we're just gonna put them all the way
Rotate
around.
like that.
All right, let's put our final strawberries on, and now we're gonna take these fancy strawberries
Okay,
and
wow.
just put them around the center.
This is
You like
awesome.
it? You like
Make this tonight.
I know. It sounds complicated, but it's really easy to make. And it begins with my favorite foolproof pastry. And this is all you have to do. First, I put 2 cups of flour into the bowl of a food processor fitted with a steel blade, plus a tablespoon of sugar and a half a teaspoon of kosher salt. Pulse it a few times to combine. Then add 12 tablespoons of cold, unsalted butter in small dice. And pulse the machine 10 to 12 times until the butter is the size of peas. With the food processor on, pour a half a cup of ice water down the feed tube. Then pulse the machine just until the dough comes together. Turn it out onto a floured board, knead it quickly into a 5-inch round flat disc, wrap it in plastic, and refrigerate it for exactly 1 hour. Okay, now rolling it out. I know everybody's scared of that, but it's not so complicated. So one of the things is I'm making a rectangle, and I keep the board really well floured and keep rolling it from the center out. I find rolling the pastry diagonally helps to keep the rectangular shape. And try and handle the dough as little as possible. I'm gonna cut it on the sheet pan. Okay. I'm just gonna straighten the edges. So it just doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be rectangular. I'm gonna refrigerate this while I get the figs ready. So this is how I prep the figs for this tart. I've got really big figs, which are just gorgeous. Take off the stem and just cut it in half. And they're big, so I'm gonna cut them in quarters. And now I'm gonna line the figs up in perfect rows. Okay, here goes. Half a cup of sugar. Don't skimp. Just evenly sprinkled all over the top. Okay, into the oven, 400 degrees. I'm gonna rotate it once, just to make sure the pastry browns perfectly evenly. The tart's almost ready to come out of the oven, and I'm just gonna make a glaze, give it a really professional finish. So I've got about half a cup of apricot preserves, a few tablespoons of water, and just stir that around just until the preserves melt. Okay, that's it for the glaze, and I can smell the tart, so I think it's ready. How gorgeous does that look? Wow. I just need the glaze and a brush. This is really easy. Just brush the top of the fruit really carefully, a little bit of the apricot glaze. So just dab it on. You don't want to brush it because you'll move the fruit around. So let's see if I can do this in one go. And do you think anybody will miss a little piece if I take it off? Nah, not a chance. That's really good.
I'm making a chocolate coconut cream tart. And the whole point of this tart is to taste like my mom's favorite chocolate bar. Now I'm gonna get started on my crust. I added 17 chocolate wafer cookies into my food processor, 3/4 cup of toasted almonds. And I'm just pulsing this up until it gets fine. All right, now I'm gonna add 1/3 cup of granulated sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Pulse it up again. Now I'm gonna pour in 6 tablespoons of unsalted melted butter. I'm just gonna pulse that until it comes together. That's good. Pour my crust right into the pan. Spread this filling all the way out and up the sides, of course, because it's a tart. So this is gonna come out of this dish and stand on its own. My oven is preheated to 375. I'm gonna bake it for about 13 to 15 minutes. And while this bakes, I'm gonna make a ganache for my tart. A ganache is basically making a chocolate sauce with chocolate and milk. But in this case, I'm actually gonna add a little bit of light corn syrup to make it a little more smoother and mellow. So I have 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate that I'm just cutting up with a serrated knife. And I'm gonna head over here to my stove and melt it. Turn my pot on, add the chocolate. I have a 1/3 cup of heavy cream. And I'm also gonna add a tablespoon of light corn syrup. And what I'm looking for is just a nice, smooth, chocolatey sauce. My ganache is done. Let me grab my tart. Gosh, it smells like that toasted almond and chocolate. Grab my ganache. And I'm gonna pour this ganache right into the center of this tart. When the ganache sets up, it's gonna be a thick layer of a stable like fudge. And when you bite into it, it'll actually melt in your mouth. Now I'm gonna let this set up in the fridge so the ganache can set up on top and get nice and solid. I'm gonna let that hang out for about 15 minutes. All right, so now I'm making the filling for this tart. It's gonna be a coconutty custard. I have 1 cup of whole milk in here and I'm gonna add 1 can of coconut milk, full fat. All I want to do now is just heat up the milk until I start to see little bubbles form, like the start of a rolling boil. All right, I see some bubbles starting to form. I wanna take my Dutch oven over here and get this filling going. I'm gonna need 4 egg yolks. So I'm gonna separate them. Okay, 1. Add my egg yolks to the bowl of my standing mixer, 1/2 cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, and a pinch of salt. I'm gonna beat this until it becomes nice and fluffy and pale in color. Okay, that's fluffy and that is pale. Now I'm gonna start tempering in the warm milk. If you add a hot mixture to something like eggs, it'll curdle, it'll make scrambled eggs. So you don't want that to happen. So you'll slowly add in your hot to prevent scrambling or curdling. That is done. Take this bowl off, pour this back in here, and take it to the stove and heat it up until it becomes thick, like a custard or pudding. My custard is nice and thick. Let me show you guys the consistency. Look at that. You want your consistency basically to be where the cream kind of coats the spoon. A tablespoon of unsalted butter, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, toasted sweetened coconut flakes. Oh man, okay. I have my tart here that's chilled, my coconut cream filling. Pour my coconut cream right into my tart dish. I'm gonna pop this back in the fridge and let it cool down and set up before I add a few fun finishing touches. Top it off with whipped cream, some toasted coconut on top, shaved toasted almonds right there.
Oh, yes.
And some shaved chocolate.
Wow. You're supposed to pass it. Not for dessert.
Room temperature butter, about 1/3 cup of sugar. I want to put those egg yolks in. Actually, I can put the speed up a little bit higher now. There we go. Okay, so in goes the 1 yolk. There's 2 yolks. Just a little touch of some vanilla. There we go. And this right here, this lemon curd that we're gonna make and the fresh berries, I think you'll dig it. There's the flour. Okay. Every time. In amazement, I am gonna grab the 1/2 cup and actually do it exactly 2 1/2. And there we go. Now, see how it's starting to bind up there a little bit? You can really hear that mixture starting to work. I'm gonna take this out, wrap it in some plastic, pop it in the fridge for about an hour, bring it out before I'm ready to work with it. So let's zest in some of the Meyer lemon. You should smell it right now. It smells like perfume. So we get that in. Go ahead and cut these, and they're soft and super ripe. And I'm gonna get this the lemon juice in there. I'm looking for about 3/4 of a cup. Not exact science in this part as much as when I do the dough. Okay. Could have done these ahead of time. Okay. Compost that. Also, 3/4 of a cup of sugar is gonna go into this. And again, this is all going for these super tarts. Get a stick and a half of the butter in. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Oh, eggs. Last piece here. There we go. 1 egg, 2, and 3. Now, going over the double boiler, this is the tricky part, is don't want to get it too hot and too fast. I'm not looking to make an omelet, and that's the reason I'm doing it in a double boiler, is because if you try to do it right in a pan, no matter how much you really control the temperature, it could just get away from you. So I'm going to take this and just nicely, under nice heat, and this is just a slight simmer on that water. Let that butter melt into that. Now, the dough is really nice and soft, and actually, if it gets too soft, it really starts to, gets too warm, it'll start to break apart on you, but it's not too cold to where it's really hard to work. And I want to get this right about here. That's right about what I'm looking for, okay? About 1/8 of an inch. Pop that down. Give myself a little cutout like that. My little tart shell here. Throw it on. Press it down in first to the sides, run it around the sides. There we go. Crimp off the top of it. I bust these out. Little fork holes here so it doesn't puff up on me. Rocking out some Meyer lemon tarts, topping them off with a little garnish of some fresh California produce. What do you think of that? Baked it right up here with those Meyer lemons. You should smell that. And nice and a little dollop of some cream.
My friends Eli Zabar, David Ziff, and I are making dinner together. We've each got our assignments. Of course, I assigned dessert to myself. So I'm making a plum tart. I love plums. These are these Italian prune plums. And they're in season at the end of the summer, and they're so delicious. If you want to make these with regular plums, just make sure they're not too juicy. They should be pretty firm, but you can certainly do it. So I'm starting with 3/4 of a pound of prune plums, 2 tablespoons of tapioca. It's a root, and it's used to thicken things classically in pies, and it'll sort of absorb the juices. 2 tablespoons of creme de cassis, which is black currant liqueur, which you don't really taste in the tart, but it really brings out that sort of plummy flavor. And next is 3/4 of a cup of sugar. So I'm just going to stir this up. This is going to sit for about 15 minutes and just sort of macerate. The juices are going to come out. And in the meantime, I'm going to make a shortbread dough, which is going to become both the crust and the crumble topping. I'll show you how to make it. Start with 1/4 pound of unsalted butter. Has to be room temperature. Put it in the bowl of a mixer fitted with a paddle attachment. Add a cup of sugar, and then cream them together until they're light and fluffy. Meanwhile, put 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour in another bowl. Add 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and just mix them together. Then with the mixer on low, gradually add the dry ingredients to the butter mixture until it forms small dry crumbs. Then add a tablespoon of cold water, and in about 30 seconds, the mixture will form large, moist crumbs, and it'll be done. So the next thing to do is put in a springform pan. I've got a 9-inch springform pan. And I'm just going to put the dough right in. I'm going to put almost all of it, say like 3/4 of a cup, and I'll show you. I'm going to put it on the top, like a little crumble. So just pat it right. I love shortbread dough for this because you can just pat it in. You don't have to roll it out. And if it's too sticky, a little bit of flour on your fingers, just be really easy to do. You can really make this tart with peaches or pears, but when the plums are in season, I just think they're great. Okay, next the plums. So I'm going to take all the plums that I've cut and just put them in, but I want it to be really pretty. So just do them really tightly. Just keep going around in circles. Great when this looks like a little like a lotus flower. Okay, last couple of just squeeze in here. Just makes it. And then I'm going to take the juice and just pour it over the top. Just drizzle it on. And then finally, that little bit of the 3/4 of a cup of crumb topping that I held aside, I'm just going to crumble right on top. I love this tart because you end up with a crisp base and the juicy fruit is fantastic and it all bakes together. It's so good. So the plum tart's been cooling for about 15 minutes. And I'm just going to get it out of this pan. It's not easy to do. And it's all ready to go. And believe me, it tastes as good as it looks.
Grapefruit tart. So I am just juicing a grapefruit. This is a really juicy one, so I probably don't need to squeeze the heck out of it. And I just strained out the pulp and the seeds. And then I also have the zest from the same grapefruit. And I'm gonna add a couple of egg yolks and a can of sweetened condensed milk, which is the nectar of the gods. And then I wanna color the filling pink, just to kind of drive home that grapefruit note. So I'm gonna add probably 5 drops of red food coloring. I always close it when I'm finished because I cannot be trusted. And then I'm gonna whisk it. I know, but it's gonna turn more pink as I stir. So for the crust, I actually already pre-baked it. I just used graham crackers and butter and sugar, pressed it into a tart pan, and baked it just till it was barely golden. All right, so I've got the crust, and I'm gonna pour the filling right in. It'll actually deepen in color just a little bit as it bakes. All right, let's get this tart in the oven, Alex Marie. It bakes at 350 degrees for about 15 minutes until the filling is set. And then I'll take it out, let it cool, and chill it before I serve. Never have I chosen a more perfect shirt color than the one I chose today. Look.
Was that a coincidence?
It actually was. I wasn't even thinking ahead. So the tart is baked and it's cooled and chilled and straight out of the fridge. And I'm just gonna go ahead and take the liberty of cutting a beautiful piece of grapefruit tart. How gorgeous is this?
Wow.
And we helped the color along a little bit, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And then I have some freshly whipped cream.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, you can.
What's the difference between pie and tart?
That's a really good question. I think it's usually like the thickness of the crust and, you know, the height. I always think of a tart as being sort of short, like low to the ground. I mean, low to the plate.
Okay.
Okay, grapefruit tart. Look how beautiful. This is perfect when you're having company over, or it's perfect on a Tuesday, about 1:45. Oh, let's just call it perfect.
One of Jeffrey's and my all-time favorite desserts is French apple tart. And the amazing thing about it is, it looks really complicated. It is so easy, you won't believe it. You really can make it at home. So I'm starting with 4 Granny Smith apples. You can really use any apples, but you want them to be very crisp and tart. I'm just gonna cut them in half. And I use a melon baller to take out the center core. And then just use your knife to take out this little bit of core. All you want is just apple, just like that. And I'll show you how to cut it. So I'm just gonna slice this very thinly, about 1/4 inch thick. Try and keep them as uniform as you can. Small, sharp knife. And now I have the pastry chilling. I chilled the pastry in the refrigerator. It's really important to let it rest. I know pastry sounds daunting, but this one really is easy. I'll show you how I did it. I make it in the food processor. First, 2 cups of all-purpose flour, then 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a tablespoon of sugar. Pulse it a few times just to combine. Next, 12 tablespoons of diced cold unsalted butter. Remember, ice cold butter is the key to really good pastry. That gets pulsed until the butter is just the size of peas. Then, with the motor running, add a half a cup of ice water and pulse it just until the dough comes together. Tip it onto a board. Knead it really quickly. You don't want it to warm up. Then wrap it in plastic and refrigerate it for at least an hour. I'm just gonna roll it out now. A little flour. So I'm gonna roll this out to about 10 by 14 inches. Just roll it from the middle. It's the best way to roll pastry. Okay, it's just gonna go right onto a sheet pan, parchment paper, the easiest way to do it. Roll it up right around your rolling pin and just lay it right on the pan. I'm gonna take one of the apples. I'm just gonna fan these out. Just layer them one on top of the next. You can do it any way you like. You can do it sideways. I like to do it diagonally across. I just think it's prettier. I love the simplicity of this. There's no filling. It's just pastry and apples, butter and sugar. You can do it with peaches or you can do it with pears, but I have to say my favorite is apples. And if you do it with other fruit, you want them to be really firm. You don't want them too juicy, otherwise you'll end up with a mess in your oven. Okay, that's the apples. Now some sugar. Half a cup of sugar. I know this seems like a lot of sugar for a small tart, but what it's going to do is caramelize the apples. It's going to mix with the juices of the apples when it bakes. And it's going to be just fantastic. So believe me, you need to use the whole half a cup. Okay, now some really ice cold butter. About a half a stick of butter, and it's chopped up in small dice. And I'm just going to distribute it, and it's going to mix with the sugar. So, cut it in quarters, and then just dice it. So just distribute it on top. It doesn't have to be perfect or exact. Just make sure it's well distributed. 450 degrees, which is a hot oven, 45 minutes, and it'll be golden brown and delicious. If the edges burn a little bit, don't worry, that's what it's gonna do. So the next thing is a classic apricot glaze for the tart. It gives it a really nice finish. So I'm gonna take about a half a cup of apricot jam. If you can find apricot jelly, it's even easier, but I can never find it. I'm going to put some in a pan. It doesn't have to be an exact amount. I'm just going to heat it up with about 2 tablespoons of Calvados. Don't go out and buy a bottle of Calvados if you don't have some. It's a nice apple flavor liqueur, just enough to thin it. I'm just going to heat this up until it's melted. I'm really looking for sort of a runny consistency. When the jam melts, it's going to be just right. I want something that's very easy to brush on the tart. Okay, this should be good. So I just have a sieve and a bowl. I'm going to pour this right into the sieve. I can really smell the warm Calvados. It smells so good. And just strain it through. And that's the glaze.
My almond tarts, and then they're covered with pink raspberry glaze. This is a pretty straightforward pastry crust. I'll build it all in my food processor. I'm gonna start with 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/3 cup of sugar. It'll be the perfect amount of sweetness. 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. This recipe is actually pretty low maintenance because it all gets built in the food processor. I'm gonna pulse the dry ingredients to combine, just a couple of times. I've got 3/4 cup of unsalted butter that's cold and cubed. I want it cold so that the tart stays light and crumbly. All the best desserts start with lots of butter. And I'll pulse it together to incorporate the dry ingredients until the butter is pea-sized. And this is the type of shell you could use with any sort of desserty tart. This looks good. And now I'll bring the dough together with 2 egg yolks. And I'm gonna reserve the egg whites for the filling, and the yolks will just make these nice and rich, in addition to all the butter. I'll plop in the 2 yolks, and now I'll blend this together into a dough. And you know it's done when it starts to form a ball, just like this. I'll turn it out onto my counter. and then pat it out into a disc. And grab my plastic wrap. I'll wrap this up tightly, and then it's gonna refrigerate for at least an hour, and then it'll make the most buttery, delightful tart shells. And now I'll form my tart shells. I'm gonna dust my counter with a little flour so it doesn't stick. And I'm gonna roll it out until it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. Ooh, that's a good arm workout. These tarts are inspired by a Swedish dessert called mazarin. I think of it as baked marzipan on the inside because it's this dense, nutty almond cake. And then on the outside, it's this crisp cookie-like shell. So if I ever can't decide if I want a cookie or a cake, I just make these. This looks nice. I've got a standard cupcake tin that I've greased and a 3-inch biscuit cutter. And I'll cut out a circle. If you don't have a biscuit cutter, you could use a glass or just freehand it. I'm gonna gently press it into the cupcake tin. And then because the 3 inches doesn't actually cover the full tin, I'm gonna use my fingers to press it so that the dough comes all the way up to the top. And this is gonna be the perfect holster for the almond filling. I'll continue to shape these, and then they're gonna set in the freezer while I make my filling. This filling is moist and dense. It is a killer texture party with the tarts. And I'm just gonna throw all the ingredients into the same food processor that I made my shell dough with. I start with 1 cup of almond flour, and that's just finely ground blanched almonds. 3/4 of a cup of sugar, a little salt, and 6 tablespoons of softened unsalted butter, the 2 egg whites that are reserved for making the tart shells, another full egg, and then a teaspoon of almond extract will make these really almondy. And that's it. I'm gonna blend this until it's combined. There's no actual gluten in the filling, so I don't have to worry about over blending it. I'm just gonna keep on going until it's smooth. That's smooth and perfect. I'll grab my shells now and fill them up. My tarts are frozen, which will help them maintain their shape in the oven. And I'll fill these guys up until the filling is 1/4 of an inch from the top, and that'll give them some space to puff up in the oven. These tarts always bring back fond memories for me because when Nick and I lived in New York, we would ride our bikes to this big Swedish furniture store where they would sell these. And it was there where I realized, oh my gosh, Nick and I can go through an entire day of furniture shopping and not get in a fight. Surely he must be husband material. Okay. These are gonna bake now at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes until the tops are lightly browned. Oh yes! These have browned beautifully. That almond flavor is so good. I'm gonna let these cool while I make my raspberry glaze. This glaze is sweet and a little bit sour, and it's gonna make these tarts pop. And I'm using fresh raspberries. I'm gonna grab a sieve and a spatula, and I'm gonna press the raspberries through the sieve to get rid of any seeds. And this is essentially just gonna puree them. So I'm just smashing it and kind of using like a scraping motion to get all of the liquid through the sieve, but it'll catch the seeds. That way the glaze will be smooth. This looks great. I have a smooth pink raspberry puree in my bowl. I'll add a splash of almond extract. Almond everywhere. It's my dreamscape. And then 1 cup of powdered sugar. And I'll stir this up until the powdered sugar has completely incorporated and the glaze is smooth. This is looking really good. And I love this natural pink color. Oh yeah, this is a perfect consistency. To decorate, I'll spread the glaze over the top. I like it thick because it looks kind of puffy, gives it some dimension. Like that. And I'm gonna sprinkle on some almonds. I'm just gonna add a tiny pinch of tasteful sprinkles. Just a few. And they're all gonna be different. I think I'm gonna do a pinch of white nonpareils on this one. It'll be so pretty. I'm gonna decorate the rest, and I'll try not to eat them along the way. I'm gonna eat one. Mmm, flaky and buttery and crunchy on the outside, soft and cakey on the inside. These are insane.
I'm making a rustic strawberry tart. And aside from it being very quick and easy, it happens to be a total knockout. I'm starting by having some strawberries. I hold them, just took the tops off, and I'm throwing them into a bowl, and I'm going to make a delicious strawberry filling for the tart. I'll start with half a cup of sugar. You gotta have sugary strawberries, I don't care what the dessert is. And I'll add a couple of tablespoons of flour, and that keeps the sugary strawberries from getting too liquidy in the oven. The flour kind of thickens them up a little bit. Now, whenever I make any sort of filling for a pie or a tart, I definitely like to add lemon zest and lemon juice, whether it's apple filling, blueberry filling, or strawberry. So I'm just zesting about half of this lemon, and then I'll squeeze in just a little bit of the lemon juice, about a teaspoon. Ooh, that's a juicy lemon. And then just a splash of vanilla, probably about a teaspoon or so. And I'll stir this around. A lot of times when I make strawberry desserts, I'll make the pie filling or the tart shell, and I'll fill it with fresh strawberries that aren't baked. And that's delicious too, but there is something about this rustic tart. The color of the strawberries after they bake is so pretty. Okay, the strawberries are totally coated in the sugar and flour mixture. So I'm gonna let those sit, and I'm gonna get to work on the crust for the tart. I'm gonna flour the board, and here is part of what makes this a quick and easy tart. I'm using store-bought pie crust. So what I did was overlap one crust over the other, about halfway through the middle. And I'm gonna roll this out just a bit to make it a little bit bigger, and also to make sure these two crusts become one. I want them to really stick together. Okay, that looks great. Now just for the shape, I'm gonna cut this a little bit so it'll be sure to fit the sheet pan that I'm baking the tart on. So to transfer this over to the sheet pan, get my rolling pin again. I probably could lift that in one piece and keep it together, but I don't want to take a risk on such a wonderful dessert. Okay, now I'm going to spoon the strawberries onto the crust, leaving a border around the edge, and then I'll fold up the edges and brush them with an egg wash. Now I'm going to put it into a 400-degree oven and bake it for 30 minutes, rotating the pan halfway through. The tart is ready. I know this because it smells amazing. Ooh. My gosh, it's so pretty. The crust is so golden. It has a little sheen from the egg wash. Now the strawberries look beautiful, but I'm about to make them a little bit prettier by glossing them up a little bit. And I like to use apricot preserves for that. I actually put some apricot preserves in a saucepan and warmed it up with just a splash of water, and it creates this beautiful glossy surface on these strawberries. Oh, it looks great. Now I whipped some cream, just a cup of heavy cream with a teaspoon of sugar, and I've got a pretty platter to put it on once it cools. It is gorgeous and glossy, so elegant, but so rustic. Just the thing for an outdoor party.
So for Thanksgiving, everybody has to have pumpkin pie. But at my house, my mother used to make a pumpkin banana mousse tart, which was actually really good. So I'm doing a version of that. It's kind of like pumpkin pie with the volume turned up. And the good news is it starts with a graham cracker crust. So 14 graham crackers, all ground up. It's about 2 cups of graham cracker crumbs. 1/3 of a cup of sugar. And I put a little bit of cinnamon in. I just think it gives it nice pumpkin pie spice. Lots of flavor. big on flavor. And the last thing, of course, is butter. So it's 1 stick of melted butter. I'm just going to mix it all together. So later I'm going to fill this with a pumpkin mousse that's flavored with a little bit of banana, which makes it wonderfully sweet, and some orange zest, and lots of spices. It's really good. Into an 11-inch tart shell. Clean hands, always a cook's best tool. So just pat it out so it's even. And then I take a cup measure, metal cup measure, and do the edge, just like that. And then you don't end up with a thick crust right at the edge. So much easier than traditional pie crust. So into the oven, 350 degrees for about 10 minutes, until it's just a little firmer than it is now. Now we get to the good part, the pumpkin banana mousse filling. So the first thing is half a cup of half and half. And I'm going to put it into a double boiler. I know every starter set of pots comes with a double boiler, which is 2 pots, one on top of the other. But you can really make your own double boiler by putting a heat-proof bowl directly over a pot. And the next thing is 1 15-ounce can of pumpkin puree. I've done this with cooking a pumpkin and pureeing it, or a can of pumpkin puree, and believe me, you can't tell the difference. And I can tell you which one's easier. Okay, so that's in. Next ingredient is 1 cup of brown sugar. And you want this sort of lightly packed. It's how brown sugar is generally measured. Right into the pumpkin. 3/4 teaspoon of salt. 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. And 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. I think the tart shell is ready to come out of the oven. Perfect. It's just a little brown around the edges, and it's just going to cool and get firm. So now I'm going to make the custard. So I've got 2 egg yolks, and what I want to do is I want to warm up the egg yolks a little bit with a pumpkin mixture so I don't end up with scrambled eggs. Just like making a traditional custard. And then pour the whole thing back into the hot pumpkin mixture. See, a nice scraper. Just want to get all of it. And just mix that up. And just cook that for about 4 or 5 minutes. So it's going to go into that tart shell. It's going to cool overnight if you want to. You can make it the day before. And then I'm going to decorate it with whipped cream. So it's not only delicious, but it's really gorgeous. So I'm going to take 1 package of gelatin and just soften it in 1/4 cup of cold water. When it's chilled, the egg yolks are going to help the mousse to set, but the gelatin's going to help it too. Okay, off the heat. I'm just going to add these other ingredients. Mashed bananas. The softened gelatin. And the last thing is orange zest. Okay, I'm just going to stir this up. So while that cools, I'm going to whip the cream. I need about 1/2 cup of heavy cream and 2 tablespoons of sugar. Okay, that should do it. You can do this with a hand mixer if you want to also. Okay, that's perfect. With whipped cream, you want to make sure that it's really firm, like that, that it stands up. But if you get it too far, you end up with butter. Don't want that. Okay. All right, I'm going to fold this into the pumpkin mixture. So put the whipped cream right in the middle. And then with a spatula, I use a rubber spatula, just go straight down through the middle and then fold it over that way. Straight down through the middle and then right to the bottom of the bowl and then fold it over. Just keep doing that until it's really well mixed. This is looking gorgeous. Perfect. And pour it right into the graham cracker crust. Smells great. And the good news about this is you can make it in advance. Leave it in the fridge for a day, and then decorate it just before you're gonna serve it. Doesn't look half bad, does it? Now comes the fun part, decorating the pumpkin banana mousse tart. It sat in the refrigerator until it just sat. And then I'm gonna decorate it with whipped cream. Looks pretty good so far. So I need a cup of heavy cream, a quarter of a cup of sugar, and a splash of vanilla. When I say a splash of vanilla, I mean maybe a quarter or a half a teaspoon. I'm just gonna whip it until it's firm. That looks good. I want it really nice and firm, but not turned into butter. And that's about right. Great. So the easiest way to decorate this, and it's perfectly great, is to do whipped cream around the middle, leaving a little border of pumpkin, sort of like meringue on the top. But I love to pipe it, so I'll show you how to do that. So take a pastry bag with a big star tip on it. I think that's the nicest one and the easiest. You know, piping looks really mysterious, but the way I learned how to do it is I just spent a day piping buttercream or whipped cream. Just practice, and you'll get it. And the best way to practice is just on a board or on the marble. So, because you can keep using it over and over again. So I'll show you. If you wanted to do a shell pattern, which is what I like to do, just a little bit like that, just like that. And it's really about the pressure in the bag and really getting a feel for it. It's not that hard. If you want to do something even simpler, it's just stars. But I think for this one, I'm going to do the shell pattern. So just all the way around. Just do like a ribbon pattern. And the good news is, if you make a mistake, you can just scoop it back into the bag and do it again. How hard is that? Okay, and then maybe a little swirl in the middle. Great. And then, because I like the decoration to be the flavors that are in the tart, I thought it'd be really nice to decorate it with a little bit of orange. Maybe some orange zest. The traditional thing that I use for orange zest is this zester, but you'll see it ends up very fine. And I think I have a better way to decorate. See, it's really too fine. But then the other zester is this little wonderful tool that just has little sharp edges. And I'll show you what it does with the orange. It has long strips of zest. And I think that'd be really pretty to decorate the tart with. And then just take it and put it around the edge, just sort of lightly. So now somebody knows it's pumpkin and orange and cream and delicious. And it's ready for dessert. I'm just going to keep it in the refrigerator until we're ready to serve it. I think it looks not bad.